Just as a reminder, you can visit us at thepandapod.com. That's thepandapod.com to grab our RSS feed, listen directly, and share PandaPod with your family and friends. You can also reach us directly via email through podcast at thepandapod.com. Thanks for listening.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Panda Pod. Joined today with our usual hosts, Jacob and Wiggy.
Hey there. I like that you had some questions about whether or not Wiggy's here, or
Yeah, I don't know why
if he is really Wiggy.
I called you Jacob and I usually call you Rab, and that threw me off with the Wiggy thing. I was like, should I call Wiggy Justin? What should I do here?
I didn't. It sounded like you didn't know what Wiki was. Like you were just
Well,
reading it
what
off, like you,
is
like
a
you
Wiggy
were, like you were
really?
reading it off a piece of paper,
Yeah,
right?
what
Like
what is this
Wiki.
word? We're joined with Wiggy?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, we're also joined today by our very special guest, Casey Stone. Hi there, Casey. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, I'm well. How are y'all?
Doing good.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Casey is a friend of mine from a spiritual community that we both share. We're both fans of the comedian and spiritualist Jessa Reed. And we are talking about our personal, like, everyday magic practices that we do at home. So, for instance, I've gotten a lot of inspiration from seeing the few posts that Casey's made about his altar setups. He's posted some pictures of his altar setups that I've really enjoyed. He's talked a bit about his, ritual work that he does while he's at home. So we wanted to break that stuff down. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Um, let's start with altar work. Casey, tell me about what an altar means to you.
So, to me, an altar is a place of worship or acknowledgement with intention. Um, it's a pretty broad thing. Like, a lot of people hear it off the cuff and would imagine, the occult meaning of altar. They think, oh, it's going to be a pentagram and a circle and some weird writing on it. And it doesn't have to be that exactly. It's all about what your practice is and what an altar means to you and how you use it with intention.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming from like a religious background.
Yeah, if you have a religious background idea of, like, say, like the normal Christian idea of an altar, they have a table with candles and the Bible, and that's
Mhm.
their altar. Um, but say an occultist might think of an altar as a shelf that they have, or maybe a table, or just a place in their home where they have a candle and a place they can leave offerings to whatever kind of energy or spirits they're working with.
Yeah, right on. And what are some energies or spirits that you work with? Like, do you do deity work? Are you doing ancestral work? Do you mix things up? How do you, use your altars?
I like to go about altar work intuitively myself. I guess if I had to pick a label about how about I use magic, it would be like chaos magic, in that, like, there's both life and death and chaos, right? And everything originates from there for me. So
Mhm.
I'm more of an energetic um, paradigm model, and then I combine that with a meditation practice and plant medicine practice, and combining those two just focus on conscious work. So it's just, for me, it's about being aware of your own energy field, um, being self-aware of how your energy is flowing through you. I like to, I guess I started work with the elements first. For me, that was a big thing, like fire, water, air, earth, spirit, and and then once you kind of identify how those energies interact with us every day, and you get more of a personal connection with it.
So I have a question. Where did the idea for you to do this at all come from? Like, how did it start? Because I mean, I can't imagine myself. I mean, I can imagine myself now that I've had contact with it through Jeff and stuff like that, doing this type of
Hmm.
thing, right? but I mean, I wouldn't just stumble upon this randomly, I don't feel like.
Right. So my Genesis story kind of began when I was 13. Um, I was brought up religious. There was a church. I grew up in a two-street town in the middle of Indiana that had a church and a field granary, or like a grain elevator. Um, so if you drove through it and blinked, you'd miss it. But I rode my bike to church. I took myself to church. Like I always sought that out, like that spiritual connection. Um, but then I left the church. I started, picking up on a lot of hypocrisy and things that just weren't adding up for me. And so I kind of just sat out in my backyard one weekend on my hill looking into the sunset, and I just decided to meditate one day on my own through my own volition. I thought, let's just sit down and clear our head. And then things just started coming to me. And then after that, and I don't even know how to explain it, was just I felt love, I felt clarity, connection, and I felt like that's when I first made connection to my own higher self.
Cool.
Yeah, right on, man. I kind of had a similar origin, just more drawn out. I feel I grew up religious as well, and I started realizing the hypocrisies, and I left, and like I really shut down the spiritual side of me for a very long time. When I left the church, I was just like, nope, I am atheist, or I guess agnostic. Or if anybody really asked, like if I was having a good conversation with someone and they asked me what I believe, and I told them I was just apathetic. Like I just didn't care.
Hmm.
But I think deep down inside, I really did care. And then, for me, the plant medicine is what really brought me back around. Like I just had like an effable experience on plant meds that made me just so aware that there was more out there, that there was more going on than what I was like paying attention to on a daily basis. But I mean, that is what like led me to my own personal meditation and the own realization of the power within myself. And yeah, that's how I came around to it.
Yeah, that resonates with me as well.
Yeah, the plant medicine came later for me in life. Like after I was a teenager, I joined the military. I did a year deployment in Iraq and came home from there. And I dealt with a lot of anxiety and some PTSD stuff. And so learning how to deal with all that and manage it was like crucial. Um, so yeah, when the plant medicine, it was a big eye opener for me. It really leveled me out and brought some awareness to some things that I really shouldn't have been worried about, and changed a lot of my perspective.
Is that something you can potentially go into a little more? I know because I know that that's a big thing at the moment. Soldiers coming back and having PTSD and you know plant medications and alternative just alternative medications and things and therapies in general having a really big impact. Is that something that you're comfortable speaking on?
Oh, for sure. I'm really excited about all of the psychedelic and nootropic research that's going into PTSD for veterans. It's huge. I know states like Washington and Oregon are getting federal clearance for studies on these things, and it's showing the improvements in um, veterans of all kinds of strokes and walks. I mean, from people surviving with just PTSD in general, or survivor's guilt, general anxiety, um, or even wounds that they, had in combat. Dealing with those things has been a lot easier for people who have looked into this kind of research. I think it has to do with a lot of the reconnective properties of things like psychedelic mushrooms, and not even psychedelic mushrooms, just plant medicines in general, like lion's mane mushroom or um, turkey tail,
Mm-hmm.
chicken of the woods, things like that. The medicinal properties of these things are really being, I guess it's had the light shone on it by researchers like Paul Stamets has been making big splashes in these fields here recently, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, agreed completely. I really have enjoyed the research that I've looked into about like MDMA assisted therapy for soldiers. That seems to be a really great pathway. I was listening to an energy update from Jessa yesterday where she was talking about how she thinks or how she views the MDMA use, and the way that it just opens up the serotonin flow and allows like all those emotions and just the clarity of emotion that you get on it. Um, I think that that's got a lot of good potential for PTSD of all kinds, not just soldiers. So
Right. Yeah, especially coming from a place like the military where the stigma exists that even acknowledging this problem is huge. Um, I mean, I remember filling out
yeah,
my post deployment paperwork.
Yeah.
they're like, "How do you feel?" And everybody around me is like, just, don't mention that," type of stuff. And I was like, "No, I'm going to be really honest about this because this is my health, and that came back to my benefit later." So, but yeah, being honest about it is huge. I mean, that's step one.
Yeah, I was just about to say just the general stigma of men, opening up a little bit more and being a little more honest with feelings, like either sometimes we just block them off completely.
Hmm.
I joke that I have a switch where I can just turn my emotions off like 100%. Um, and my battle with using that as a tool when now later on in life I have more trauma because I did that instead of dealing with what was going on in the moment. And it excites me that we're coming up with things and ways to deal with this with just men in general, and how amazing these I mean, I'm going to call them alternative medications, even though they're essentially the original medications, right?
Right.
Um, and how they're helping men to be able to get through and experience and manage their emotions and be able to move past trauma better.
Definitely, and also in relating that to magic, once I started working with from an energetic standpoint, you start becoming aware of how much male and female energy is flowing through you, at one time, and how an imbalance
oh
or out
yeah.
of balance it is, and that helped me balance a lot of things out.
Yeah, I've got one of my boobs is bigger than the other, and I'm pretty sure that's my feminine energies coming out.
Right.
So
Well, your winky tit contains
yeah,
all
wait,
of your
all my
feminine
feminine
energy. All your
energy.
divine
Yeah.
feminine leaks from your winky tit. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about leaks. It's never leaked yet, but I've also never been man pregnant.
Here's hoping.
So we'll
He's
have to see.
storing it.
Yeah, well, here's hoping one day I get man pregnant. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm storing that energy for later use. Yeah.
Right on. Well, let's go back to altar work real quick. What's your current altar setup, or do you have an altar at the moment?
Okay, so I use a late 60s PV tube amp, like an amplifier, guitar amplifier, as my table. And then I have a wooden
Mhm.
pedestal altar on top of that has the 5 elements inscribed in runic writing. And then I use crystals or shape stones that I correlate energies with to use. I use a bit of spoon theory where I charge crystals and I carry them with me in a mojo bag every day. And if I need some of that energy, then I kind of use it from there.
Okay. And yeah, what is spoon theory? What is that?
So, spoon theory, as I understand it, um, or how I use it, it's the idea that people like a lot of neurodivergent people understand that they only have so much energy to use throughout the day. So if you think about it like a video game character's mana bar, right? Like divided into slots, like you only get so many slots throughout the day, and you don't want to overextend yourself or you're gonna,
Right.
reach that detrimental point. So it's kind of like that. Like if you think that you need that energy throughout the day, it's there, and it reminds you to not overdo it throughout the day.
What do you know why it's called spoon theory? Because like, you're spoon feeding it throughout the day. Is that the idea?
I honestly think it was because someone that developed it actually carried spoons around, And I knew somebody that did this in school, in middle school and high school. They legit did this. His nickname was Spoon, and he carried spoons in a briefcase, and it was super impressive. And now that I think back, I was like, man, he was way ahead of us all. Like 20 years ago, that guy had it figured out. Um, but yeah, he literally would carry white plastic spoons. Yeah, and every time he had to, I don't know, use his spoon energy, he would burn a spoon somehow. I don't know.
I
It's
don't feel
interesting.
I don't feel as bad about wearing Jinkos anymore when I was in, when I was in
In high
school.
school, yeah, at least you weren't carrying around a briefcase of spoons. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
This
think
was
so.
definitely during that period. I'm pretty sure he wore the Jinkos too.
Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course he did. Of course he did. Yeah,
Definitely.
I relate to that. Yeah.
Well, if you're out
He's,
there, spoons, thank you for imparting your wisdom on stones to share with us today.
I wonder if he inspired the song Spoon Man.
I think that was pre spoons. Yeah, unfortunately, that was in the early '90s. Maybe he inspired him.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be the Spoon Man without a spoon.
So you have your altar set up, and then what do you do with your altar? Like, how do you use that?
So I use my altar anytime I want to do like ancestral work or address any spirits for divination or to invoke or evoke energy. It kind of depends on what type of ritual or working you want to do. I set mine up with a candle on the left side. I use incense as offerings, and I keep that on the right side. And then I have a small cauldron that I use for incinerating canister. So if there's something that you need to sigilize or incinerate in a working, you can put it in there safely and burn it, and do that. And then I have a cup for water offering, and that's about it.
Yeah, right on. My setup is I usually have depending on what energy I'm working with, I'll pull some tarot cards based on the energies I'm trying to pull in. Like right now, I've got a setup with 3 tarot cards. I've got the Devil, Death, and the High Priestess on my altar. And the idea behind that was there was a kind of weird interaction that someone I love was having with someone else that had to do with, needing to, both parties involved needing to, shed ideas about each other and um, also like shed their own personal masks. So the shedding ideas about each other was the death card. The shedding ideas and ways they view themselves was the devil, and then the high priestess represented the 2 people involved. Um, and so I was like burning a candle along with that. And I've also got a couple of spell jars that I've built and some moon water, which it's a full moon tonight, by the way. So
Yes, it
anybody
is.
who doesn't have their moon water, set out a jar of water and get that water charged up.
Definitely.
Man, these full moons are making me crazy.
Well, this one in
So,
particular, full moon in Gemini, is rough. Like it's
like,
just a lot of
Yeah.
like just
dualistic energy.
dealing with people during a full moon is just it makes for a really rough day for me because everybody it seems like everybody around me other than me is insane. Like everybody's got a problem with something, everybody's like on edge, everybody's a little more irritable like just around
Definitely.
me. And I found this every time there's a full moon for like the past like 10 years I've been witnessing this.
Right. Yeah, it's a
I hate
cycle.
it. I hate it
It's
so much.
definitely a natural cycle. I mean, that's another thing that working with magic has made me aware of is working with the natural cycles of, you know, our biosphere we call home. We have the moon, we have the sun, and it comes up and down every day, and they both have different energies. And that's another daily practice I do is thanking the sun when it rises, thanking it for its warmth and its light on my path. And when the moon sets, I like to think, actually, I'm walking into work normally when the moon's getting ready to go down. So I usually like to thank it for guiding me through my dreams, for helping me regulate my emotions, and yeah, the lunar energy has been super strong like the past 3 days. Like even if you just look up at the moon, like normally it's got a little blue ring, like it's like had a halo DJ effect behind it for about 3 days now. So yeah, the energy's been super strong.
Yeah, and so moon water in particular, I love to do every month. On the full moon, I'll set out a jar of water outside, just where I know the moon will shine on it. And I've had some people ask me, why do I do that in the past? What do I expect the moon to do there? And I don't know that it's I expect the moon to do anything as much as it is the intentionality behind what I'm doing with it, like intentionally putting that water out and then using that water in ritual work over the next 2 weeks between the full moon and the new moon. And then on the new moon, reflecting on that ritual work and, how I developed as a part of that. I just feel like the intentionality of it is really, for me, intentionality is magic.
I think intention is
Mm-hmm.
it's our subconscious keel. Like it keeps us on the path. And even if it doesn't keep us on the path, it definitely keeps us where we're going or where we think the path is at the time. But however you approach, whether it be ancestral spirit work or energy work, it's 100%. I mean, it's like when you take the time to reduce the interference that, through programming and trauma and things that we all have in the front of our minds, when we get to that quiet place inside, that quiet inner self that isn't worried about returning emails or, letting the dog out or, man, did I water the plants today? Just the quiet, just letting everything be still and approaching it with intention. Like there's of course a certain level to be said or something to be said about fuck around and find out. Like that's definitely a way to go about it, and I'm here for that. But I would say that the most effective way about going about it is to approach things with a clear intention.
Right. Yeah. To what you're asking about, the way I view intention and magic is when you're doing magic work, you put an intention in your mind. For me, anyway, what I'll do is I'll have an intention, and then I want to embody that intention in some way. And oftentimes that involves my altar, and the ritual work that I do at the altar, and so in my opinion, anyone's capable of doing, manifestation work and magic as long as they have the like deliberate intention of doing it. I consider it like a knowledge hazard almost, if you guys are familiar with that idea. Like my ex-wife Sarah, she was really into magic, and I couldn't really understand what she was doing at the time, and we've had talks about it since we've left each other, and like I've really come to an understanding of what it is she was trying to do. But like what she was doing didn't really seem to be having any effect on me. Like she would tell me about the like spell work, ritual work she was doing, and I was like, okay, that's great. I'm not seeing any reflection of what you're doing in the world, so it must not be real. But later on, after our divorce, I met another witch, and I was talking to her, and I was like, can you tell me like why I haven't ever really seen any effect from the work I've seen other witches do? And she's like, yeah, because you don't believe in it. Like the secret to a curse or to magic in general is if you don't believe in it, it's not going to work. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. It makes it sound like I'm saying that, you just have to make it up in your head or whatever. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, if let's say someone puts a curse on you, that curse isn't going to have an effect on you if you don't believe it's real. Like
let's be completely honest. There's no difference between that and religion.
No, there's really not. Like, and I think religion is like some of the most ancient magic, Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think that brings pertinence to the saying that ignorance is bliss.
Well, I go a step further and say that
Right. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
knowledge hazard part of it. As soon as you're made aware of of it, and you take the time to like investigate it and decide you're going to believe in it, that is the point in which it starts affecting you. That's the knowledge hazard part of it.
Kind of the observer effect.
I was gonna say, I don't feel like there's a huge difference between um, that and like Western medicine in a way. Like obviously, if somebody has to amputate your arm,
As far
like
as like the
that,
placebo effect.
you could see what happened afterwards, and there's no disputing it, right?
Right.
Mhm.
But like, if you truly don't believe that the chemotherapy is going to work, like it probably isn't, right? I mean,
I'd vibe with that. Yeah.
Like the placebo effect exists for a reason. You know, our bodies are capable of doing a lot if we believe they are able to do it.
I think the body definitely does have the ability to heal itself. There's these re- regenerative energies, I think, that come from the earth itself. Even like, I think it has to do with a lot of kind of what Tesla was pointing at. Um, these natural resonances, these energies that exist from around us, is something that we can interact with through like our own personal torus field and heal ourselves with it. In my opinion, anyway, from an energetic standpoint, like
Yeah, I can see that. There's a reason why monks, like Buddhist monks, tend to live so long, right? like
right,
like there's a reason why people who are really really healthy and live to be over 100 years old, they're they're very joyful.
definitely, yeah,
They may not be very quick anymore, but they're very happy people. um and so I can see why, how just the general energies that you surround yourself with in life, and you surround yourself with happiness and joy, and how that can have a profound impact on your body in general. um
definitely.
and potentially make you even live longer. I don't
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, those monks, they be kicking around the Himalayas for used to be hundreds of years. Um, but I think that speaks a lot to like the hermetic wisdom of when we die, our heart is weighed against a feather, and whichever is heavier, you know, says whether or not we lived a happy life or not.
I really like that. I don't think I've ever heard that before. I really like that idea.
With the heart being weighed against a feather.
Hmm.
Have you seen oh, what was that Marvel show that came out recently? They did a really good job of depicting that. Moon Knight?
Moon Knight,
Was
yes,
that it?
Moon
oh
I
yeah,
Knight.
think
Moon
that was
Knight was
it.
a thing. Yeah, that
Moon
makes
Knight,
sense. It makes perfect
yeah.
sense that it'd be Moon Knight.
Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
seen that. I
Wouldn't
haven't
it
seen
be?
that one.
It was really good. They have this whole like 3 or 4 episodes where they're basically just talking about entering the afterlife and the whole like weighing your heart versus a feather thing, and like coming to grips with your own flaws and your own um
Regrets,
but well, in this case he had
even.
split personalities, so I guess
Oh,
it's a
right,
bad kind of analogy because it was about working with both people. But
right.
anyway, yeah, so I did want to also talk about like what kind of ritual work you actively do. So we have the altar set up. What kind of rituals do you do on like a daily or weekly basis, or even on your month cycles? Like what are you doing to harness those energies for yourself?
So for me, I'm still kind of a baby witch when it comes to ritual magic. So for me, it's really just been about the meditation practice. But as far as ritual work, I like to do like on the fly ritual work. Does that make sense? Like kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know, for just healing work where it needs to be done, if you feel it needs to be done, or if you just feel like, I don't know about ritual work. Like, I guess I think of it more of, see, for me, like the ritual is the act of using the energy, right? So when I have a handmade leather bag that I carry some crystals in that I like to, use spoon theory from to use magic through. So if I find myself in a place where I can like combine elemental energy to fix a situation, then I kind of do it right there, if that makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think some examples. Something real simple recently or within the past few months. Like I was driving, I had something in the back of my car that was kind of trying to flap out, and fly out behind me out of my truck bed thing. And there was a car behind me. And the only thing I was worried about that I could just see in my head was that thing coming out and like flapping over the windshield and causing them to wreck. And I was worried about their safety, right? And I just did this intentional thing where I thought about water. I thought about making it heavy and wet. And then I thought about earth and the grounding pull of earth to just pull it down and hold it there. And it did it. And it stayed there for 20 more minutes and never flew out of my bed. So did it work? I guess it did. It could have been coincidence.
Who
Could have been
knows?
coincidence. We'll never know. But that's just how I use it. It's just situational like that.
Love
I
that,
mean,
man.
it makes me think of you as a practical magician.
That's what I like to think. I mean,
Like not so
an
much
alchemist, an
like
energetic alchemist, I guess, is a good categorical phrase.
Yeah,
yeah, that's cool.
I love that, man.
Thank you.
A lot of times when I'll get like a phone call or a text from someone, and like there's a situation with like some urgency or some panic or something like that. In those moments, that's when I'll like stop, do a little meditation, get myself centered, feel that energy inside myself. And then, I really enjoy doing just like sigil work on the fly,
Hmm.
quickly drawing up a sigil, burning it at my altar real quick, and spending a couple minutes just like intentionally sending, what other vibes or energy that person needs at that moment to them. Who knows if it's really doing anything. Maybe it's just making me feel better in those situations, but either way, I feel like I get good feedback from it. Like later on I'll talk to people and be like, hey, how's that situation going? They're like, man, after I talked to you I just felt so much better, or blah 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 happened.
For
And
sure.
who knows whether I had any influence on that really, but at least I took the time to put my intentions and energies out there for those people.
Definitely.
Yeah, and
Same.
and I think that's a good time to do my usual skeptic's disclaimer. And it's not really a skeptic's disclaimer. It's like why this should matter, even if you're a skeptic, Because I mean, what Jeff described, he's um, talking to somebody on the phone, and likely he already knows when having that conversation that he's going to go and focus on that person and attempt to send them healing energy. And I mean, something in their subconscious surely must be able to detect that in his voice. So in a way, it has to do something, right? I mean, it's almost
Well,
indisputable.
even if it just gives Jeff more confidence to be himself, it changes the interaction that he has with the other person.
That's
So even if
absolutely true.
so
Yeah.
even if
Yeah,
so even if it doesn't actually may or may not affect the other person, it affects him, in which we all affect each other. So I mean, you could say that yeah, it definitely does do something, but I think it goes back to that like you have to believe that it's going to, otherwise it wouldn't do anything. So,
Sure.
There are also just a lot of interactions and times with people where I feel like I can't have a like realistic physical impact on them, or even like an immediate emotional impact on them that they might need, that just letting them know, hey, I'm gonna burn a candle for you, you know it just lets them know that they've got somebody on their side, somebody who's wishing them well. Like I have a friend who the other day had to go to a doctor's appointment that they were really nervous about. I was like, hey, what time are you going? They told me what time. I said, okay, shoot me a text before you leave. I'm going to light a candle for you. I'm going to spend some time thinking about you and just sending you, positive energy and good vibes. And it's very thoughts and prayer-y in a lot of ways, which isn't great. But what else can you do in those situations? This person I was talking to is hundreds of miles away from me, and I just
Right.
want them to know that I'm thinking about them and I want them to be happy and well, and
Yeah.
that's me finding ways to take the time in my life to do that for those people.
I guess in my imagining of it, I didn't even think you were telling them, right? Like I feel like even
Oh
if you
yeah,
didn't tell
sometimes I
somebody,
won't. Yeah.
I still feel like they should be able to sense that that's the way you're feeling when you're on the phone with them,
Mhm.
that you're calm, that you are going to do, you're going to do something about it. Not that that necessarily is going to solve their problem, but I feel like they can sense in your voice, and even if they don't consciously acknowledge it, something is aware.
Have you what do you say instead of like thoughts and prayers now? Do you say like thoughts and sigils, or like
Eh,
what is your
no, I really do think when I say that I'm sending good vibes to people that it feels a lot like I'm saying thoughts and prayers kind of thing. Like, well, I'm sending good vibes, or I'm sending loving vibes, or I'm sending grounding vibes for you in this time. I think it's a very similar sentiment, but people know when I say it that there's actual practice behind it, and that feels nice, I guess.
Right. Mine's blessings be. I feel like it works on both ends. Like we're
Oh, that's
leaving it
pretty good.
open for blessings to occur on your end and my end, but we're just hoping for good things.
Yeah, I love that.
yeah? And then the other person says, uh, "And with you, right?"
Sure.
Right.
So another thing I wanted to talk about today, Casey, and this is something that you brought up when I mentioned that I wanted to have you on, was the idea of like kitchen magic. Because I feel like a lot of people don't realize this, but they probably have like a grimoire of some sort in their kitchen or around their kitchen that's been handed down from generation to generation. It's called a recipe book. You know,
Yes.
like in my opinion, recipes that have been passed down from generations, or even recipes that you go and find online that other people have taken the time to put together and like test out and put out into the world, are very much, in my opinion, you know, it's spell work. It's alchemy. It's turning all of these different ingredients into one, nourishing, you know, pot of stew or what have you, that with the intention of, nourishing a body, and oftentimes, different kind of benefits from that nourishment. Like a good soup or a good pot of chicken soup that your grandma, you know, learned how to make over the years because, these ingredients were what was healing their children when they were sick. You know, that's
Totally.
that's magic work in my opinion.
Totally agree. So, yeah, I would like to qualify all of that first off with a statement that, and I'm going to give credit to Chance Garden from Introverse Podcast on this because that's where I learned it. But spelling is creating a spell. That's how we create spells by. That's why they call it spelling. So, your recipe book
Mm-hmm.
is a list of ingredients for spells to feed and nourish your body for sure. Um, and on top of that, you have to add medicines that have been passed down with food, like combining ginger and lemon and
Yeah.
citruses and honey, and then letting it, sit in your windowsill and then sit in your cooler. And then you just kind of grab a little bit of that and put it in some hot water, and you've got, a, kind of a cure all. These apothecary cures that have been handed down for hundreds, if not thousands of years. People are doing it every day and probably aren't even really aware of it. If you think about the prayers that even regular Christian people do before dinner, that's energy that you're asking to be blessed into the food you're about to consume, um, by their God or their deity. So, yeah, kitchen magic to me is big. Just I think it brings a level of awareness again to that, how we interact with that energy every day. Even if it's just making your cup of coffee,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you have like a special spoon that you use, or to like get the coffee out or something, or and you make a ritual of, I'm asking for this energy today to get me through the challenges that I'm going to go through, and I'm asking for the best outcome, and thanking, the ingredients, the plants that are in it, and and consuming it, and that in itself is a ritual.
I really like
Does
that.
it-
Hearing you talk about that, it just gave me a thought about how, like, every morning I watch Elia, like, I'm laying in bed while Elia is getting ready for work in the morning, and like she will specifically pick out like a specific print of underwear that match her vibe for the day that she's feeling when she first wakes up. And I'm realizing now that I do the same thing with a coffee cup when I go to make my coffee in the morning. I'm like, okay, which one of these cups is going to give me the vibe that I'm looking for, you know? And so it's kind of like the specific spoon thing that you're talking about, you know, like it's the intentionality of like, okay, this Scorpio cup that I love is the energy I need for today because I'm going to pull in that scorpionic, you know, energy with this coffee and get to work using it, you
All
know.
right, well, that makes me feel seen because I do both with the underwear and the coffee cup, so that works out. That checks out for me.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that makes me wonder, does that mean that fast food is just like a bunch of curse factories?
It's not curse factories, but it is a lot of just unintentional consumption. And it's the same thing with like a frozen bag of fries or something in your fridge, you know, like, yeah, it's going to feed you, but
I
there's no intention.
intentionally get those fries out the fridge and put them in the air fryer. Like that's with intention.
Right. But I
Like
mean, it's food, but I don't think it's substance, you know, like, whereas if I were to sit down with some potatoes and cut them up and, you know, cook them on the stove, it's going to be the same ingredients, but I don't know, it's going to be more intentionally built for me in that moment as opposed to the cheeseburger I got at McDonald's that took 5 seconds for someone to slap together, you know. I
maybe
just think,
they're in a bad mood, right? Like they're definitely in a bad
yeah.
mood making the cheeseburger.
And those cows probably weren't in the best mood either. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it goes all the way back to that as well. Like the energies you're getting from the meat that you're consuming and how they were raised and dispatched in this life. I think that does matter, honestly.
I think it definitely has something to do with it, but also don't judge yourself too hard because anything in balance is okay as long as you're not overindulging. Like, all things are good in balance.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so, if you would abstain from the McDonald's French fries and cheeseburger until maybe had a few drinks at dinner and it got kind of late and you think, man, what my body needs right now is a greasy cheeseburger and I'm going to feel a lot better. And
You
sometimes
know
that's
what?
the
I have been
medicine.
there. That's true.
Sometimes that's the medicine.
Listen, if we're gonna be honest, I literally told my wife right before we started the podcast today. I was like, so what are we doing for dinner? And she's like, I don't want to cook anything. Like she's been
Yeah.
exhausted the past couple days. I had this to do, so I didn't have time to cook. And I was like, you know what? I really want some double cheeseburgers and some fries. So let's get some McDonald's. Like that just happened. So
Nice.
I am feeling a little cursed at the moment. I'm a little extra tired. I've got that after Thanksgiving sleepy feel at the moment, but I don't think it's a good one.
I feel that. Yeah, it's definitely holidays are energetically taxing for everyone, for sure.
Yo, for real. Yeah.
But yeah, I've been doing the same thing. I've been, mixing in the leftovers.
Yeah, I'm real tired of turkey and stuffing. I love turkey and stuffing. Like, they're some of my favorite foods, but I've eaten so much of it over the last 4
Mhm.
days. I'm just like, go away, turkey.
I'm just gonna start making since I know I didn't follow that diet today, but I am on a new diet. I think I'm just gonna start making my own turkey. Um,
There you go.
because you're tired of it, but that's all I want is turkey.
I don't get it a lot, so I crave it around the holidays.
Yeah, I don't. Before very, very lately, I never ate turkey. Like maybe on Thanksgiving, I'd have a little turkey, right?
Hmm.
Um, but now I'm having it all the time,
It's pretty
just
good
all
for
the
you.
time.
My dad has
One
them
thing
in
that I
bird.
did want to
Oh,
ask
go
you
ahead.
about, yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you about is, so we've talked a bit about meditation, right? Um, have you developed your own style of meditation, or have you done lots of research and kind of picked like a specific version of a more widely popular way to meditate, or how has that worked for you?
So when I started meditating recently, like within my adult years, I did do some research into different forms of meditation and different breath work, um, different breathing patterns, and I found actually found a podcast that I like called the Nickel City Mystic. Actually, shout out to him. Um, and I started with his breathwork, energetic balancing meditation every day. And then I think that was kind of the training wheels that I needed to really get going, to just do it myself without any guidance or anything. Because I kind of got to the point where I felt like the guided meditation was limiting me a little bit, because it was like, okay, you're used to this pre-programmed way of doing it, but you're not leaving yourself open to expand on it, is kind of to the point where I got. But that was definitely a good starting step for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting take, because some people dedicate their entire lives to a specific way of doing it, right? Um, and they don't sway from the pre-designed like mantras, right? Similarly, I started off when I started doing research, I got really into Zen Buddhism, um, and specifically focusing on Zen meditation.
Hmm.
Um, and what I came to learn is I think the different versions of meditation that are out there can help you tap into different things. Like Zen helps me when I'm angry, right?
Hmm.
Allows me to like calm myself down and recenter. Um, but with what you're talking about is more of like the very specific breath work, um, which I would think is more like body holistic, um, base, right? Like what you're talking about. Like now you've gotten to the point where you can do that without thinking about it, so that you can explore more,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I guess it's kind of. I guess it's more, the way I do it is more related to like qigong with the breath work, but I definitely vibe with the Zen Buddhism and the centering aspect. That's definitely one of the things I do first, and then interacting. So like when I meditate, my daily practice is more or less bringing myself to a place of stillness, calmness, and inner awareness, and shutting down my frontal lobe and just being in a relaxed state. And once I'm in that state, I can focus on my energy centers. So I kind of focus on like the root through the crown, bringing them into alignment, clearing any energy blockages, and making sure that there's flow between those energy centers, and just bringing my energy into alignment so that I can, walk my path the best way I can that day.
Really awesome to hear. It's
Thank.
motivating. It's motivating.
I'm glad. I think that's why we're all out here, to connect to each other and raise this.
Yeah, for sure. And like I feel like the more I do group meditation with other people, like the more I learn as well. And oftentimes I find that it's me learning that the things I do in my own private practice, like in my own like spare time, breath work in particular, like I didn't really do a lot of research on how to like do breathwork meditation, and it just kind of came naturally to me, like what I do. And I find that when I'm doing group meditation with people and they start describing, the practices they picked up and they're doing, I'm like, oh, I already do that. That's dope. It's cool that other people have been doing that. And it's like confirming to me that, what I'm doing, because like there'll be times where I feel silly in some of my private practice. I'll be sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm sitting here and I'm focusing my energy on my heart, my heart space right now, and moving that to my root or my throat or wherever it needs to be, and like discovering that other people were doing those similar things based on practices they learned from other teachers. It just felt like good fun confirmation for me, like, okay, I'm on the right path here. There's more to learn, but the intuitive part of me that started doing these things, obviously it's a human thing inside of me that other people have learned as well, and it's worth exploring more. I don't know, it feels nice to have that
Definitely.
confirmation.
Definitely. And I think that brings a good point to how important community is, and like these validating, conversations we get to have with each other about these experiences. I think that's super important. And like people in the Discord that we're involved with, and Jessa Reed's AOD community, those things are super important. And I think as that evolves, it's gonna be good for growth.
Yeah, agreed completely. And obviously you're a part of like the bigger community stuff that we're trying to build out there. Like the more like intentional physical community that we're trying to put together, getting people in one specific spot to, live together with intention, and yeah, who knows what that's going to look like in the end.
I'm super excited about it for sure. Independent living is freedom to me. Yeah, I'm ready for it. I think we all are.
And like getting all of the different people and the different energies together, and feeling those different energies when we're all talking about it and things like that. I don't know, it's very inspiring, and it just reminds me that we're all a part of this like learning life experience together, and that the more we can share with each other and the more that we can rely on each other for that alchemical energy work that you just can't do on your own. The
Right.
processing of trauma and things like that, yeah, you can do it on your own. That's not fair, because you totally can do it on your own, but it's so lonely to do it on your own, and you don't have to do it on
It
your own.
can't be. Yeah. Those dark nights of the soul, they get rocky, and
Yeah.
community's a big leg to stand on. Like there's something to be said about sovereignty, but we're still humans.
Yeah, and I know a couple of like really lonely witches that I've met over the years, and their practices look so different than the practices that I see in our community of little magical people. Like they're not as somber and dark, I guess. Like I feel like there's something about doing magic alone that leads you down this path of, oh, this is secret, and oh, this is no one else knows this. There's like a gatekeepiness to those like smaller personal witches, that they don't want you to know their little secrets. Whereas
Right.
when you get into a
The
community like
occulting
one
of
that
the
we're a part
information.
of, it's all about sharing what we're finding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It all goes back to intention.
If I wasn't older and married, I wouldn't. After hearing this, see, I'm a very curious person, and so I think I might try to seduce those witches for their secrets. I think that's what I would do with my life right now if I wasn't having heard that. I think that's what I would do with my life right now.
You know what? Those witches would eat you alive.
Those witches have definitely put spells in place to protect themselves from you.
Nobody sees me coming. You know that better than anybody. Nobody sees me coming, man. They're not prepared for Wiggy.
Yeah, Wiggy is chaos magic incarnate. Yeah. Nobody can predict
Love it.
what he's trying to do.
I love it.
Well, right on. Is there anything else you wanted to cover today, Casey? Anything on your heart that you wanted to share?
I just had one thing that came to me earlier today that I wanted to leave everybody with, and it was a saying that goes, art is us listening to the universe, and magic is the universe listening to us.
Ooh, I like that.
Nice.
And that's it.
You
Thank you
know,
so much for
I
having
want
me.
to say something on that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks for being around. And coming on, we really appreciate it. I want to say something on that real quick before we go. So I'm not an artist. in almost any way. I have no creativeness in me, as much as I try to like get that out. And we had a ceremony on Saturday for uh, a nephew that I lost. Um, well, that the family lost. I'm not trying to own that situation. But essentially, the baby didn't last long after it was born, and we had like a little ceremony on Saturday. And so I'm getting ready, and I'm in the shower, and like I'm not really thinking about anything. Like I'm just kind of like just taking a shower, and all of a sudden, an entire poem came to me.
Wow.
um, that I said that day, and and like I said, I'm just not artistic. And but I wasn't thinking about anything, I think was the key, right? And all
Hmm.
of a sudden that just came to me, and it meant a lot to my sister-in-law, that those words resonated with her, and she wanted like a copy of what I had said, of what I had written down.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
and it meant a lot to her. And so to back up your claim, in that saying of, at least the first part of it, of, you have to be open to the world for that art to come to you. I think that definitely holds merit, because I had never had a situation like that before.
That's amazing.
Um, but like I said, I wasn't thinking about anything, right? Like I was just completely like, okay, it's time for shampoo, right? Like I wasn't thinking about anything. So that's really amazing. That I think that resonates with me.
I'm so glad. That's when spirit knows that you're able to receive that. I think, when your intent is the cleanest to get the message in those quiet times.
Right. That's the beauty of meditation, is just emptying your head and seeing what comes in. You know, I know that
Hmm.
a lot of my favorite writing I've done, you know, immediately after after meditating. I think in particular, like one poem I wrote when I was in the Rockies, just sitting staring at some mountains and trying to clear my mind. And yeah, divine inspiration is interesting, and I think that's what you experienced there, man.
Yeah, well, it's a very religious family, right? So a lot of the religious people are like, that's God talking through you and stuff, and to me, I really, like, on the same vein, I kind of believe in it. And I don't take everything that Joe Rogan says as like any kind of gospel, right? He's a comedian. He's not like some kind of fact scientist, right?
Right.
but but as being an artist, he's open to this idea of the muse, right?
Hmm.
And I really take to that idea of like, and the way he describes it is, he sits down with intention to write, and he writes stuff, and then eventually some of that stuff, it either comes to him or it doesn't come to him, right? And he's not an artist that puts out like a new comedy special every year or every 2 years. He's more on like a 5 to 6 year cycle or 7 year cycle with his stand-up routines, right? So it takes time, but the stuff does come to him, right? And that's what I think I experienced. I don't think it was like specifically like one god or another god or whatever. I definitely think it's more of an energy muse, like maybe even ancestor type thing, right? Like that's kind of how I experienced that. And I don't think that came from some kind of like worded spirituality. But
Right. Definitely. I definitely
Right
resonate
on,
with
man.
that for sure.
All right. Well, Casey, thank you so much for being on today with us, man. Do you have any socials or anything you want to plug? Any spiritual practices out there that you're actively, selling services for?
I'm not doing that currently, but if anybody wants to follow my Instagram, it's underscore bones underscore of underscore stones underscore. You can follow me there, and that's it. Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come commune with y'all.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun. Thank you for coming and sharing your practices with us and your views on things. I love sitting down and talking to you every time that we talk. I learn something new, man. I really appreciate having you in my life.
Same. I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Well, we will catch you on the next episode of the Panda Pod. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Bye.
Bye.